The Phantom Hitchhiker. Prom night has always carried a certain kind of magic. For most teenagers, it's the night of gowns and tuxedos, of glitter and nerves, of borrowed limousines and pictures that would sit on mantelpieces for years. It's the night you stay out too late, feel too alive, and believe for a few fragile hours that nothing bad could ever touch you. But some dances end in the grave. Prom night is supposed to be magical, and this story proves just how quickly it can turn into a nightmare. If chilling true stories are your thing, hit that like button and subscribe before we get deeper, because it only gets worse from here. Claire and Daniel weren't supposed to be together. At least, not officially. Claire was a senior, beautiful in a quiet way that didn't need sequins or lipstick to make her shine. Daniel was only a junior, a year younger, a boy who worked after school fixing cars with his uncle. Her parents didn't approve. Claire was meant for college, they said. Daniel was just a mechanic's kid. But prom night has a way of making people braver, or maybe more foolish. Claire wore a pale blue dress, satin that shimmered under the cheap high school lights. Daniel showed up in a black suit with a slightly crooked bow tie. They danced, they laughed, and when the chaperones weren't looking, they slipped out the back door to Daniel's old Chevy, parked at the edge of the school lot. They weren't ready to go home, not yet. Midnight in the countryside meant endless roads stretching between fields and woods, perfect for driving with the windows down, music low, pretending the world outside didn't exist. It was just past 1 a.m. when Daniel spotted her, a girl, standing at the side of the road where the woods pressed up close. She wore a white dress, at least, it had been white once. Now it was dirty, shredded at the hem. Her long hair hung damp and tangled. She didn't wave, didn't stick out her thumb. She just stood there, staring as the headlights swept over her. "Daniel, stop," Claire said immediately. "She looks like she needs help." Daniel slowed the car reluctantly. Every horror movie he'd ever seen flashed in his head, but Claire was already unbuckling her seatbelt. "Come on, we can't just leave her there." The girl stepped closer as the Chevy idled. Her face was pale, too pale, but her eyes were wide and dark. She leaned down toward Claire's side of the car, her voice barely a whisper. "Can you give me a ride home?" Claire glanced at Daniel, who sighed. "Fine. But just to town." The girl slid into the back seat. Her dress smelled faintly of river water and something metallic. Claire tried not to wrinkle her nose. At first, no one spoke. The night seemed to grow heavier the farther they drove. Finally, Claire turned in her seat. "What's your name?" she asked gently. The girl hesitated. "Emily." "Were you at the prom too?" Claire asked. Emily shook her head. I was supposed to be." Her voice cracked on the words. "But I didn't make it." The way she said it sent a cold shiver down Claire's spine. Daniel cleared his throat, trying to cut the tension. "So, where do you live? We'll get you there." Emily gave directions in a flat monotone. "Left at the fork. Right past the church. Straight down until the old farmhouse." Daniel frowned. He knew the area pretty well, but the route she gave wasn't leading toward any farmhouse he could remember. Still, he followed, tires crunching on gravel as the road narrowed. Finally, the girl leaned forward. "Stop here," she said. They pulled up in front of an old wooden gate, half buried in weeds. Beyond it lay nothing but an overgrown path disappearing into the trees. No lights, no house. "You live here?" Daniel asked skeptically. Emily didn't answer. She just smiled faintly, as if at some private joke. Then she opened the back door and stepped out into the night. "Wait," Claire called after her. "Do you need us to walk you up?" But the girl was already gone. Not walking, not running, just gone. The back door of the Chevy still hung open, but the seat was empty. The gravel crunched under Claire's heels as she climbed out, scanning the trees. "Emily." Only silence. Then Claire noticed something on the seat. A small, silver corsage pin, rusted at the tip. And beneath it, the fabric was damp, dark. Daniel leaned over, swore under his breath. "Is that blood?" Claire's hand trembled as she picked up the pin. It was icy cold, as though it had been lying in snow. They didn't talk much on the drive back. Neither wanted to admit what they had seen, or hadn't seen. By the time Daniel dropped Claire at her house, dawn was beginning to gray the horizon. "Don't tell anyone," he said quietly. "They'll think we're crazy." Claire nodded, but inside, she knew she wouldn't forget. Not ever. A week later, she broke her silence. The local library had a dusty stack of old yearbooks, and she spent an afternoon flipping through them. When she saw the picture, her stomach dropped. Emily Dawson, Jr., smiling in her school photo, hair shining. The caption said she drowned the night of prom, 1979. Fell from the bridge on Route 17 when her date lost control of his car. They said she never made it to the dance. Claire stared at the photograph until her hands shook too badly to hold the book. She never went down Route 17 again. To this day, people in that town tell the story. Some say Emily is still waiting for her ride to prom, thumbing the road in her ruined dress. Others whisper she's not waiting, she's hunting, looking for someone to join her beneath the river's black surface. Daniel moved away years later, and Claire never spoke of it again. But if you ask the right old-timers at the gas station, they'll lower their voices and say, "Don't drive Route 17 on prom night. If you see a girl in white, don't stop. Because some passengers never leave your car." And here's a warning, this story will change the way you look at empty roads at night. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. That way, you won't be driving alone when the next tale comes.
Story 2. The Gym That Never Sleeps.
Prom ended at 11:47 p.m., which, if you ask anyone who was there that night, was the single stupidest time to stop feeling immortal. The confetti cannons sputtered out their last burst, glitter drifting like stardust across the gym. The DJ gave a lazy half salute, muttered something about tips, and started unplugging his speakers. And then the lights, bright, fluorescent, unforgiving, snapped back on. Suddenly, the magic was gone. The balloons looked like dollar store leftovers, the streamers sagged like wrinkled skin, and even the floor, littered with sequins and crushed roses, looked less like a dance floor and more like a battlefield. Some kids bolted for the parking lot, still half drunk on adrenaline and the promise of after-parties. Others lingered for one more picture, photos that, years later, would never quite match the way they remembered feeling. Immortal, untouchable, alive. And somewhere in the middle of it all stood Nora Daniels, 17, senior. Quiet, thoughtful, pretty in the way that didn't need glitter or lipstick. She wasn't the kind of girl who drew attention, but tonight, she felt like a ghost in plain sight. She adjusted the strap on her pale dress, blinking up at the rafters, trying not to cry. Not over the boy who'd slow danced with someone else during the last song. Not over the college rejection letter folded in her purse. Not over the gnawing dread that tomorrow everything would feel empty. She breathed in. The gym smelled of sweat, lemon-scented cleaning fluid, and old wood polish. And above her head, the banners swayed faintly in the air-conditioning draft. District Champions, 1996. Spirit Week, 2012. And then, the strangest one of all, yellowed with age, edges curling, letters peeling. Safety first, no after-hours access. Everyone joked it was about broken ankles on the slick gym floor. But Nora knew better. She volunteered in the yearbook office. And once, digging in the bottom drawer, she'd found a photocopy she wasn't supposed to see. A list of names. A string of dates. And then, a blank space where 1988 should have been. No explanation. Just a crude drawing of a clock with no hands. She'd laughed it off at the time. Some kind of prank, she thought. But standing there now, with glitter crunching under her shoes and her throat tight with something unnameable, Nora remembered that page. "Hey, you coming or what?" Jess leaned against the bleachers, eyeliner still sharp even though her hair was falling out of its curls. Bold, brash Jess. The kind of girl who dared people to whisper about her and then dared them louder. Behind her, Evan and Malik, both still in tuxes that no longer fit quite right, waited. Evan with his nervous frown, Malik with his restless energy. They were Nora's people, not because they were alike, but because they fit together like scraps no one else wanted. The rest of the class streamed out toward limos and borrowed sedans. But these four, they had a pact. "One last look," Jess said, pushing the side door open again. "One last dare." The metal hinges groaned, and the gym exhaled. The decorations sagged in silence now, shadows stretching longer without the blur of bodies to soften them. The scoreboard, for some reason, glowed faintly, its green digits frozen on 12 o'clock. At half court, Malik stopped dead. "What the hell is that?" There, stretched across the glossy floor, was a cross made of yellowing athletic tape. Not new, not decoration. Old, frayed, out of place. Evan's sneakers squeaked as he backed up. "Coach would never," he whispered. But the words died in his throat. Nora bent closer. The tape wasn't just old, it looked like it had been scrubbed at, pulled up, redone. As if someone had tried, again and again, to erase it, but couldn't. The scoreboard flickered. 12 o'clock 11:59. Jess laughed nervously. "Well, that's not creepy at all." The sound came so faintly at first, Nora thought it was her imagination. A melody. Slow. Measured. A waltz. not from the speakers. The DJ had packed those hours ago. No, this music was coming from the floor itself, rising through the wood like it had soaked into the lacquer. Balloons quivered overhead, as though someone had breathed on them. Jess edged closer to the tape cross. It's just an old prank, you know, like Bloody Mary. But her voice cracked. Malik shook his head, eyes wide. This isn't funny. Jess, I'm serious. This isn't. The music swelled, louder. And then they saw it. The gym wasn't empty anymore. At the base of the bleachers sat a boy. Not a boy like them. Older, somehow. His tux was out of fashion, edges stiff, corsage wilted and pinned crookedly to his lapel. He sat stiff-backed, head bowed, waiting. The air grew heavy, sour, like dust and mildew that hadn't been touched in decades. Jess whispered, "Do you see him too?" The scoreboard ticked again. 11:59, 11:58. The boy raised his head. His eyes were wrong, too dark, too hollow. And when he opened his mouth, no sound came out. Just the hiss of static, like a radio tuned to nowhere. Nora didn't think. She grabbed Malik's hand. Evan shoved Jess toward the door. Together they ran, sneakers slipping on glitter, sequins crunching like broken glass, until the crash bar gave way and the night air slammed into them. The gym door slammed behind, rattling the frame. Inside, balloons deflated in unison, a hiss like dying breath. The scoreboard blinked 11:57 before going black. A week later, Nora sat in the yearbook office, drawer open, photocopy in her hands. Names. Dates. 1988, blank. And at the bottom, scrawled in hurried pen, "We didn't get to finish the last song." Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it. Years passed. Nora never went back. But the whispers stayed. Kids said if you snuck into the gym after prom and stood at half-court, you'd hear the waltz start up again. That if you lingered too long, you'd see him, the boy in the tux, waiting for someone to take his hand. Some swore they saw balloons tremble when no one touched them. Some claimed the scoreboard ticked backward, always backward. And some said, if you stayed past midnight, you'd feel cold fingers brush your wrist, leading you to the floor. Nora knew better. She knew enough to stay away. But sometimes, late at night, when the house was too quiet, she swore she heard faint music through the walls. The sound of balloons shifting in stale air. And the whisper of a dance that never ended. And here's your warning, don't wander into empty gyms after dark. Don't listen for music with no source. Don't watch the scoreboard if it ever ticks backward. Because some proms never end. And if you've made it all the way here, drop a "still here" in the comments and subscribe, because the night isn't done with us yet, and the next story is already waiting.
Story 3. The Dress That Never Fit.
This is it. The last dance. The final story. If you've made it this far, turn off the lights, because this one isn't about what you see. It's about what's already wearing you. Hit like and subscribe before we step into the mirror, because once you look away, the dress might not let you leave. Lena Morgan didn't believe in curses. She believed in clearance racks, thrift stores, and the small kind of luck that came from finding something beautiful when you weren't supposed to. That's how she found it, a red prom dress hanging on a rack in Second Chance Vintage, wedged between a row of faded denim jackets and old marching band uniforms. It wasn't flashy, not sequined or glittering. Just deep crimson satin, the kind of red that catches light like blood under glass. The tag said, in fading pen, property of C. Monroe, 1983. The shop owner, a gray-haired woman with nicotine fingers, noticed her staring. "You sure about that one, hon?" she asked softly. "It's been returned 3 times. Lena smiled awkwardly. "Guess it's waiting for me." The woman didn't smile back. She just wrapped it carefully in tissue paper, like she was covering a body. Outside, rain streaked the window. As Lena walked home, she thought she heard something, a faint rustle, like fabric brushing against pavement. When she looked back, the street was empty. Saturday night arrived with thunderclouds stacked above the horizon. Lena stood before the mirror, hair curled, hands trembling slightly as she unwrapped the dress. The moment she slid it on, she froze. It fit perfectly. Too perfectly. like the fabric already knew her body. Her mother knocked on the door. "Lena, honey, you ready?" "Almost," she called, staring at her reflection. The dress gleamed under the dim bedroom light, red like a wound, shimmering like something alive. When she blinked, she thought she saw another pair of eyes looking back from the mirror, dark, heavy-lidded, rimmed with mascara from another era. She blinked again, and it was gone. At the prom, the gymnasium glowed with fairy lights and sweat. The air smelled like hairspray and nostalgia. Lena felt the stares immediately. The red dress drew every glance in the room. "Whoa," said her best friend, Margot. "You look unreal." Lena laughed nervously. "Yeah. It feels unreal." When someone complimented her, she felt the fabric tighten slightly against her waist, not painfully, just possessively. Then the DJ changed songs, and the lights dimmed. Across the room, for a fraction of a second, Lena saw someone wearing her dress, the same red satin, same shimmer, standing at the far end of the dance floor. But when the strobe lights blinked, the figure was gone. By 10 p.m., the dress had grown heavier. Every step Lena took felt like dragging velvet soaked in rain. In the mirrors lining the gym wall, her reflection seemed slightly delayed, moving half a second behind her. "Hey," Margot said, frowning. "You okay? You look pale." "I'm fine," Lena lied, tugging at the dress. The zipper felt warm, like skin. When she excused herself to the restroom, the air inside was colder, the tiles slick, the light buzzing overhead. She turned toward the mirror and froze. Her reflection wasn't smiling. "Funny," she whispered. "I didn't think I was smiling either." The reflection tilted its head, eyes hollow and curious. Then, lips parting, it whispered, "It looks better on me." The lights flickered, and when they came back, the reflection was normal again. But Lena's ribs ached, the fabric was pressing tighter. She reached for the zipper. It didn't budge. Her skin prickled. She yanked harder. Still nothing. Then, beneath her fingers, she felt something move. A faint pulse, like a heartbeat. Lena stumbled out of the restroom, gasping. She found Margot and their friend Jonah near the punch table. "Lena, what's wrong?" Jonah asked. "The dress, I can't get it off." They followed her to the back hallway, the music thudding behind the doors. Margot tugged the zipper, swore. It stuck. Jonah leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Wait, is that stitching inside?" They pried the fabric slightly. Underneath the red satin was an older layer, yellowed lace stitched roughly by hand. In black thread, faint words were embroidered: Clara Monroe, Prom Queen 1983, never crowned. "Who's Clara Monroe?" Margot whispered. "She's the name on the tag," Lena said, voice shaking. Then the hallway lights went out. Somewhere in the dark, music began to play, faint and warped, as though through water. A slow, old waltz. Lena's feet began to move against her will. Her body turned, hands rising, as if pulled by invisible strings. "Stop," she screamed. But her voice came out doubled, one tone hers, one older, cracked and trembling. The red fabric shimmered, bleeding light. Margot's phone flashlight flickered on, revealing Lena's face contorted, tears streaking her cheeks, her reflection in a nearby glass case smiling. Behind her, the figure appeared again, Clara Monroe, in the same red dress, her corsage wilted, her skin pale as silk. "Finish my dance," the ghost whispered. Lena's heartbeat roared in her ears. Every instinct screamed to run, but something else, deep inside, told her to stay. The spirit wanted her body. The dress was the tether. So Lena did the one thing the ghost didn't expect. She danced. Step by step, she forced herself into motion, spinning, twirling, reclaiming the rhythm. The air shimmered, the lights exploded into crimson. Her reflection blurred between two faces, hers and Clara's. When she reached the final step, Lena screamed, "It's mine," and ripped the side seam with both hands. The fabric tore open with a wet sound, and a cold gust blasted through the hall. The ghost let out a hollow wail that faded into silence. When the lights flickered back, the hallway was empty. The dress hung loose around her shoulders, the color now dull, like dried blood. Margot found her kneeling on the floor, shaking. Jonah whispered, "What the hell just happened?" Lena didn't answer. She just looked at her reflection in a shard of broken glass. The mirror version of herself blinked a half-second too late. At home, she folded the red dress carefully into a box. For weeks, she tried to throw it away, but every time she reached for it, she heard faint music. So she locked it in her closet instead. Sometimes, late at night, when the clock hits 11:47, she hears a faint shuffle of footsteps, a whisper brushing through the walls. And once, just once, she swore she saw a shadow twirl past her mirror, red satin catching the moonlight. And that's the last story. 3 nights. 3 dances. 3 that never ended. If you've made it this far, you've survived them all. But if you ever find a red dress that fits a little too well, don't wear it. Because some outfits never come off. And some mirrors never stop watching.